You've been presented with a reality meticulously crafted, a narrative you were never meant to question, a distant, unknowable God, a universe born of cold accident, and a Jesus who died to absolve you of inherited sin. But what if this version is a carefully constructed facade, a mere surface concealing a truth far grander, more interconnected and intentionally designed? There exists a tome seldom discussed, frequently dismissed, yet openly available, claiming to unveil the very essence of existence. It professes not to be written by human hands but dictated by higher intelligences. It's called the Urantia Book, and should its revelations hold true, every foundational belief, from the nature of divinity and the structure of the cosmos to the very purpose of your soul, has been fundamentally misunderstood. This is not simply another addition to the vast library of spiritual texts. It is a gauntlet thrown down before every system that has ever told you to silence your questioning. Its genesis wasn't in the hallowed halls of a temple or the sterile environment of a laboratory. It began in the unassuming quiet of a Chicago residence in the 1920s. A highly respected psychiatrist, Dr. William Sadler, was summoned to investigate an extraordinary case. An individual, whose identity remained shrouded in mystery, had begun to articulate profound discourses during periods of deep sleep. This was no ordinary somniloquy, it was an entirely unique phenomenon. In these trance-like states, he would deliver extended, intricate expositions on subjects ranging from advanced science and complex philosophy to comprehensive cosmology and intricate divine principles. The vocabulary he employed was sophisticated, the concepts were coherent, deeply layered, and startlingly profound, all far exceeding the intellectual capacity he displayed in his waking life. Sadler, a man who had dedicated years to debunking the claims of spiritualist charlatans and fraudulent mediums, initially approached the situation with unwavering skepticism. However, the deeper he delved, the more convinced he became that he was witnessing something unprecedented, something that defied easy categorization. Over time, he assembled a dedicated group of fellow intellectuals, a collective that became known as the Forum. For 2 decades, this group meticulously documented the sessions, compiling thousands of pages of transcripts. The culmination of their efforts was the Urantia Book, a text unlike any other, claiming to be not merely inspired by higher beings but directly authored by them, a transmission from celestial realms. The book makes no concessions to human ego, offers no easy platitudes, and does not attempt to align itself with existing belief systems. It declares unequivocally that humanity has reached a point of readiness to receive elevated knowledge. This transmission, it asserts, is being delivered by celestial intelligences with the express purpose of bridging the widening chasm between primitive religious understanding, fragmented scientific discoveries, and the distortions present in conventional theology. It lays out an expansive cosmology, offers a redefinition of Jesus' role and purpose, and provides a detailed blueprint for the evolution of the soul. Yet in spite of the sheer magnitude of its claims and the revolutionary potential of its message, the book was not aggressively promoted. It was never subjected to the manipulative tactics of evangelical marketing. It was not affiliated with any established church or religious organization. It simply appeared quietly, published in 1955 by the Urantia Foundation, bearing no author's name, lacking a central guru figurehead, and making no demands for financial contributions or unwavering allegiance. This lack of self-serving promotion alone warrants a moment of contemplation. In a world where power is almost invariably asserted with fanfare and self-promotion, here was a book that asked only to be engaged with thoughtfully, studied diligently, and critically examined. So why is it that you likely haven't encountered it before? Why isn't it a staple in theology programs, a topic of passionate debate within spiritual circles, or subjected to rigorous analysis in mainstream intellectual discourse? Perhaps the answer lies in the fact that the Urantia Book stubbornly resists categorization. It defies simple classification as a religious dogma, nor does it neatly fit the mold of a scientific theory. It poses a direct challenge to both domains of thought, demanding a re-evaluation of deeply held assumptions. It doesn't dictate what to believe. Instead, it suggests that the story you've been subscribing to has been incomplete, perhaps intentionally so, and that the truth, far from being dangerous, holds the key to true liberation. Some of the revelations contained within this book are far too paradigm-shattering to articulate fully in this space. That's precisely why we established Insights Nexus, our free newsletter, where we explore concepts too profound and nuanced for open platforms. Subscribe via the link below, and for a limited time, you'll also receive a complimentary copy of the Kybalion. This book doesn't ask you to blindly follow, it compels you to awaken. It speaks in the language of intricate order, inherent patterns, and deliberate intention, painting a picture of a universe that is not arbitrary but profoundly structured. A living cosmos pulsating with intelligence and hierarchical organization where every being, including yourself, is embarked on a continuous evolutionary journey. It doesn't portray humanity as inherently fallen or deserving of condemnation, but rather as works in progress, still evolving towards their full potential. It doesn't revere mystery for its own sake, it meticulously maps it out. What began as an inexplicable sleep phenomenon evolved into a literary enigma. But if its claims are even partially valid, then we are not simply looking at a manuscript. We are confronting a cosmic transmission, deliberately timed for the precise moment when humanity is ready to receive it. That moment, according to the book, is now. You've been taught to perceive the universe as an immense, indifferent expanse, an unending void of stars and galaxies governed solely by chance occurrences, mathematical formulas, and the immutable laws of physics. At least, that's the prevailing narrative. Science tells you that it all originated with a singular event, a massive expansion, and that order gradually emerged from initial chaos. Religion, on the other hand, often bypasses the details, attributing the entire creation directly to divine intervention. But what if both perspectives are missing a larger, more comprehensive picture? What if the universe wasn't merely born, but meticulously designed? According to the Urantia Book, the cosmos isn't an uncaring void. It's a dynamic, living, breathing system, an intricately interconnected and hierarchically organized structure deliberately created with intention. Furthermore, Earth isn't the center of it all, nor is it particularly special. It's merely one small world among countless billions, nestled within a universe of unimaginable depth and complexity. The book describes a cosmic map so vast and intricate that it surpasses traditional comprehension. At its core lies Havana, the central and perfect universe, an eternal and unchanging realm, the home of the Universal Father and the origin of all creation. Surrounding Havana are 7 super-universes, each composed of billions upon billions of inhabited worlds. We exist within one of these, known as Orvonton. Within Orvonton resides the Milky Way galaxy, and within that swirling spiral of stars sits our solar system. Our planet, Urantia, is simply one of the countless evolutionary worlds within this grand cosmic design. However, this is not merely science fiction speculation. The book assigns names, functions, and purposes to each and every layer of this cosmic structure. It speaks of ancients of days, beings of incomprehensible wisdom who preside over the super-universes, and of creator sons such as Michael of Nebadon, more widely known to us as Jesus, who are responsible for the creation and administration of local universes. These are not metaphorical constructs or allegorical figures. They are presented as genuine beings existing within a real structure, invisible to us only because our spiritual perception remains underdeveloped. This intricate structure is not haphazard or chaotic. It operates in accordance with divine administration, governed by laws and principles of order, and driven by a system of progressive growth. Planets evolve, souls ascend towards enlightenment, and civilizations progress towards greater understanding. There are countless beings far advanced beyond us, not in terms of technological prowess, but in terms of conscious awareness. While we focus on material advancement, they prioritize spiritual maturity. Earth, in this model, is in its nascent stage, still experiencing chaos and striving to find its place. Yet it remains an integral part of something far greater. It always has been. This concept alone represents a direct challenge to the prevailing narratives of random evolution and simplistic theology. If the Urantia Book is even partially accurate, then the universe is far more akin to a structured school than a relentless battlefield, a carefully designed classroom for souls, each progressing through experiences, learning lessons, and gradually evolving toward ultimate perfection. This may sound grandiose, but hasn't something within you always suspected this to be true? Haven't you always sensed that life holds deeper meaning than mere survival? And that there might be a valid reason why certain concepts, such as the soul, the afterlife, the process of ascension, or the existence of angels, persist throughout human history and across diverse cultures? What if these aren't simply fanciful inventions, but rather distorted memories of a more profound reality? The Urantia Book doesn't merely offer poetic language, it provides a structural framework, an architecture of existence. It provides context, placing you on the map of something so staggeringly vast and beautiful that it dwarfs your daily worries into insignificance. However, this doesn't imply that your life is meaningless. It means that you are an integral part of a system too expansive for you to fully comprehend at once. You've been conditioned to believe that the universe is cold, indifferent, and devoid of intrinsic meaning. But what if it is, in actuality, alive, intelligent, and patiently awaiting your growth into its intricate rhythm? What if you are not a cosmic accident, but rather an essential component of the most sophisticated system ever conceived? If you have ever gazed upon the world and felt that something is profoundly amiss, that history is riddled with inexplicable suffering, confusion, and unending conflict. The Urantia Book offers an explanation that is as startling as it is deeply profound. It doesn't attribute humanity's inherent chaos to the concept of original sin, nor does it simply assert that we are a violent species by nature. Instead, it points to something that most religions only vaguely hint at, and that most scientists would never dare to consider: a cosmic rebellion. According to the book, Earth, known in celestial terms as Urantia, was not always spiritually isolated. We were once seamlessly integrated into a larger spiritual network, a vast interplanetary system where divine guidance and cosmic harmony flowed freely. However, this reality was irrevocably altered by the actions of a single being: Lucifer. Not the mythological figure of popular imagination, the horned devil of hellfire, but a real being, an administrator of our local system who hundreds of thousands of years ago instigated a rebellion against the divine order. His central argument revolved around the assertion that intelligent beings did not require the oversight of a universal God, and that autonomy should supersede divine guidance. This was not a war fought with physical weapons, but rather a battle waged with ideas. Lucifer's manifesto promoted self-assertion above spiritual alignment, and a significant number of celestial beings chose to follow him. Earth was one of the worlds directly impacted by this ideological revolt, and as a consequence, we were effectively cut off, quarantined, and spiritually isolated from the rest of the universe. This isolation was not intended as punishment, but rather as a measure of containment, designed to prevent the rebellion from spreading further. The affected worlds were severed from the higher cosmic circuits. Earth became a spiritual island, left to navigate its own course without the full support of divine administration. If you have ever wondered why so many of our prophets, sages, and visionaries throughout history have spoken of the pervasive darkness within the world, this is the underlying reason. It's not because a vengeful God abandoned us. It's because we were placed in a state of isolation to contain the spread of spiritual corruption. We weren't cast out. We were protected from ourselves until we reached a point of sufficient spiritual maturity to perceive the truth clearly once again. But here's the crucial detail that should resonate deeply. Most religions, in their own unique ways, unknowingly echo this fundamental story. The fall of man, the exile from the Garden of Eden, the angel cast down from heaven, these are all fragmented echoes of this grander narrative. However, over time, these fragments were distorted, twisted into narratives of guilt, shame, and eternal damnation. Instead of fostering growth and empowerment, they instilled fear and self-loathing. Instead of illuminating the broken connection, they led you to believe that you were inherently flawed, permanently broken. That is the true tragedy. We've been raised on fragments of a story that was never meant to condemn us. It was intended to empower us. The Urantia Book reframes this ancient cosmic rupture not as an eternal curse but as a temporary disruption. It reveals that the rebellion is drawing to a close, that the spiritual circuits are gradually reconnecting, and that Earth is in the process of rejoining the larger spiritual family of which it was once an integral part. The pervasive chaos you witness around you is not a permanent condition. It represents the birth pangs of a planet awakening from a long and arduous slumber. However, awakening is never an easy process. It necessitates relinquishing everything you once considered normal. It involves recognizing that the systems that govern this world, our political structures, our deeply ingrained ideologies, and even our established religions were shaped in the shadow of spiritual isolation. They evolved without access to the full spectrum of divine light. They did the best they could with the limited resources available to them, but now the light is returning. You were never born into a world doomed to inevitable destruction. You were born into a world undergoing recovery, a planet in profound transition. Your presence here is not accidental. According to the Urantia Book, souls are placed with deliberate precision. Your presence here is not a form of punishment. It's an opportunity to participate. You're here to contribute to healing what was broken, but you cannot fulfill this purpose while remaining trapped within the old, limiting narrative. You must perceive the situation for what it truly is, not a fall from grace, but a detour in evolution, one that we are finally prepared to correct. For the vast majority of individuals, the narrative of Jesus begins in a humble manger and concludes on a Roman cross. Everything in between is filtered through a handful of carefully selected gospel accounts, interpreted through centuries of religious tradition and institutional agendas. You were taught that Jesus was the Son of God, who descended to earth to sacrifice himself for your sins, a divine offering to appease an angry and vengeful deity. However, what if that narrative only scratches the surface of a far deeper reality? What if the truth is not that he came to die, but that he came to live, and not simply to live, but to experience, embody, and demonstrate the innate divine potential residing within every single human being? According to the Urantia Book, Jesus was not merely a spiritual teacher or an enlightened prophet. He was Michael of Nebadon, a creator son, a divine being entrusted with the creation and governance of entire universes. These creator sons originate from the universal Father and the eternal Son, and each one establishes and oversees a local universe teeming with billions of inhabited planets. Our universe, Nebadon, is one such domain, and Michael, Jesus, deliberately chose Earth, Urantia, as the location for his seventh and final bestowal, the act of fully uniting with his own creation. Allow this concept to fully resonate within you. Jesus did not come to earth as a savior in the conventional sense. He did not descend to offer his blood as a form of cosmic payment. He incarnated to fully comprehend his creation, to experience life as we do, to walk in our shoes, to endure our limitations, and to demonstrate what a life of complete alignment with divine will truly looks like. His mission was not to establish a new religion. It was to model the path of spiritual evolution. His life served as the ultimate example, not a unique exception. The Urantia Book reveals aspects of his life that extend far beyond the scattered fragments found within the Bible. It provides a detailed account of his childhood, his adolescence, and his so-called lost years, those decades between his visit to the temple and his baptism in the Jordan River that the scriptures largely ignore. It speaks of his extensive travels, his pursuit of knowledge, and his profound encounters with diverse cultures and philosophical perspectives. It paints a portrait of a man who wasn't merely passively awaiting his public ministry, but was actively preparing himself, questioning deeply, integrating new insights, and continuously growing. He confronted real struggles, experienced moments of profound doubt, shed tears of sorrow, and wrestled with the meaning of his purpose, not because he was weak or lacking in resolve, but because he was fully human, while simultaneously being fully divine. This dual nature is what makes his journey so deeply meaningful. He wasn't pretending to be human. He was authentically human, and by living as one of us, he didn't merely fulfill a cosmic requirement. He earned the right to govern with perfect empathy and understanding. He became not just a sovereign ruler, but a brother, a friend, an unwavering example of divine potential. His death was not a predetermined cosmic necessity. It was the tragic consequence of ignorance, fear, and misunderstanding. The crucifixion wasn't demanded by a vengeful God. It was permitted by flawed human beings. Yet even in that moment of unspeakable violence and profound misunderstanding, he offered forgiveness, transcended the impulse for vengeance, and embodied the very essence of unconditional love. If you've always felt that the institutional version of Jesus leaves far too many questions unanswered, why his teachings focused more on the kingdom within than on external rituals, why his message centered on personal transformation rather than transactional redemption. Perhaps it's because the deeper truth was deliberately obscured, buried beneath layers of religious dogma. The Urantia Book doesn't ask you to blindly worship Jesus. It invites you to understand him, not as a remote figure depicted on a stained glass window, but as someone who walked this earth for the same fundamental reason you are here: to grow, to serve, and to remember your divine origins. It reframes Jesus, not as the singular exception to human potential, but as its highest expression. In doing so, it completely flips the script. His purpose wasn't to make you feel inherently unworthy, it was to show you what is possible. His life wasn't intended to be idolized, but emulated, not through blind obedience, but through conscious embodiment. If what this book reveals is true, then Jesus didn't come to save you. He came to show you how to save yourself. There's a subtle but insidious lie subtly woven into the fabric of modern life, the notion that you are inherently broken, fundamentally flawed from birth, and in constant need of external fixing. Religion frames this lie as original sin. Culture portrays it as ingrained inadequacy. The system relentlessly sells you salvation in the guise of status, image, and endless achievement. Yet despite all these external promises of worth and fulfillment, something still feels profoundly missing. That persistent emptiness you feel inside isn't because you are inherently flawed. It's because you have been disconnected from something vital, not something you need to acquire, but something you need to remember. According to the Urantia Book, within every human being resides a fragment of divine presence, a spark of the universal Father. This is not merely a metaphor or a symbolic representation, it is an actual reality. This divine fragment is referred to as the thought adjuster, and it represents your truest compass, the very essence of God dwelling within you, constantly whispering, not in audible words but in flashes of insight, pangs of conscience, and quiet, unwavering guidance. It is not there to control you or dictate your actions. It is there to guide you, always respecting your free will. This is the fundamental paradox of divine love. It never forces, it only gently invites. You have likely experienced the presence of this adjuster in those moments of quiet stillness, when a deeper truth rises above the surrounding noise, in those intuitive nudges that compel you to choose the more difficult but ultimately more honest path, in the gentle yet persistent awareness that you are destined for more than the mundane routine, more than mere survival, and more than the superficial distractions that dominate the lives of most people. That feeling isn't a figment of your imagination. It's a form of contact, a silent, persistent invitation to awaken to your true potential. The thought adjuster is your inherent divine inheritance. You didn't earn it through good deeds. You didn't request it from a higher power. It was placed within you as irrefutable proof that you are not separate from the divine source. You are an extension of the divine, a being in progress on a journey of inward discovery that ultimately leads back to the source. This isn't about adhering to a set of beliefs. It's about cultivating a relationship. The thought adjuster doesn't demand worship or subservient obedience. It seeks cooperation, a harmonious partnership. It doesn't require elaborate rituals or effusive praise. It simply waits patiently for you to listen, to tune into its subtle guidance. However, here lies the challenge. The systems surrounding you are deliberately designed to drown out its gentle voice with endless stimulation, relentless noise, and artificial desires. These aren't merely distractions. They are active barriers that hinder your ability to connect with your inner wisdom. The more you outsource your sense of self-worth to external sources, the harder it becomes to discern your own divine voice. The thought adjuster speaks most clearly in moments of silence, in states of profound integrity, and through acts of honest self-reflection. Its guidance cannot be purchased or acquired through external means. It cannot be decoded or interpreted by another individual. Its guidance is personal, direct, and pure. The Urantia Book suggests that the path to true transformation doesn't lie solely through adherence to religious doctrines or philosophical systems, but through conscious partnership with this inner fragment of divinity. Ethical decision-making, Intellectual growth and acts of love and service are all mediums through which your soul evolves. Every choice you make represents a vote for either alignment or separation. Every moment is another step on a journey of cosmic consequence. You were never intended to be a sinner groveling for grace. You were intended to be a soul awakening to its origins. The divine spark within you isn't a judge perched high above, scrutinizing your worth. It's an intrinsic part of you, waiting to be recognized and embraced. Your spiritual growth doesn't begin with blind belief in an external savior. It begins with unwavering trust in the quiet force already embedded within your very core. You are not inherently broken. You are simply incomplete, and that incompleteness isn't a flaw. It's an opportunity. Incompleteness signifies that you are still evolving, still unfolding, and still being actively invited to participate in your own creation. Once you begin to heed that inner voice, the one that has been patiently waiting, whispering and gently guiding you, you won't require anyone to dictate what to believe. You will simply know, not because someone taught you, but because your soul will remember what it always knew to be true. If the Urantia Book presents such a vast and intricate vision of the universe, if it redefines the life of Jesus with staggering detail and nuance, if it claims to be authored by celestial intelligences, and if it holds answers to questions that have haunted humanity for millennia, then why is it that so few people have ever heard of it? Why isn't it a subject of rigorous debate in universities, a topic of passionate discussion within churches, or analyzed by think tanks and theologians? Why does something of such monumental significance remain relatively unknown? The answer is both simple and profoundly unsettling. Because this book doesn't just reveal new truths, it renders old established systems obsolete. It refuses to fit neatly into any existing category. It doesn't ask you to join a church, tithe a percentage of your income, attend prescribed ceremonies, or submit to a hierarchical structure. In fact, it actively undermines those very systems. The Urantia Book contains no clergy, no rigid dogma, and no demand for blind obedience. It offers knowledge without control, insight without indoctrination, and for systems built upon the foundation of power and dependency, that is an inherently dangerous proposition. You live in a world where information is often monetized, tightly controlled, and weaponized for specific agendas, where attention is the ultimate currency, and where ideas that truly empower individuals are swiftly co-opted or deliberately suppressed. Religious institutions, political organizations, and even the scientific establishment all rely on a consensus reality, a shared agreement on the nature of the world. They thrive because most people tacitly agree to perceive reality through a narrow, easily manageable lens. The Urantia Book directly threatens that consensus. It makes no attempt to blend in with the prevailing narratives. It boldly challenges the foundations of theology, rewrites the accepted cosmological map, and utterly dismisses the notion that anyone needs to mediate your relationship with the divine. Organized religion simply doesn't know what to do with it. It doesn't align with existing doctrines, doesn't reinforce the mechanisms of guilt, sin, or ritualistic atonement. It doesn't call for subservient worship. It urges genuine understanding. It doesn't seek to diminish your sense of self-worth in order to sell you salvation. It unequivocally declares that the divine essence already resides within you and always has. That kind of empowering message dismantles centuries of carefully constructed control. It breaks the hypnotic spell that many institutions have cast, and those who profit from that spell would prefer that you never discover this book. Even the academic world largely avoids it because admitting that the Urantia Book warrants serious scholarly investigation would necessitate opening doors that most institutions are deeply afraid to explore. It doesn't conform to the established language of mainstream science or conventional theology. Therefore, instead of thoroughly investigating its claims, they summarily dismiss it, labeling it as pseudoscience and filing it away as a mere curiosity, not because they have disproven its tenets, but because they lack the framework to contain it within their existing paradigms. And here's the central irony. If it had been written by a known human author backed by a powerful publishing house and driven by a clear financial agenda, it might have found its way into mainstream consciousness. However, it didn't arrive in that manner. It emerged quietly, without a carefully orchestrated marketing strategy, no official spokesperson, and no charismatic messianic figure. It was simply a text, a message, and a map, and because of that very fact, it has remained hidden in plain sight for nearly 7 decades. But profound books don't vanish simply because they are unimportant. They disappear because they are inconvenient to those who maintain the status quo. The Urantia Book isn't merely inconvenient, it's profoundly disruptive. It doesn't ask you to blindly believe. It dares you to think critically, to question deeply, and to unlearn what you've been conditioned to accept. For a world deliberately designed to keep you spiritually numb and intellectually sedated, that makes it a radioactive element, a dangerous catalyst for change. It's not difficult to understand why this book hasn't become a viral sensation. People aren't simply afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of having to fundamentally rebuild everything they thought they knew to be true. Reading this book isn't just a mental exercise. It's a profound confrontation with deeply ingrained beliefs, a quiet rebellion against inherited thought patterns, and a challenge to look beyond the surface and ask yourself, what else have I unquestioningly accepted without examination? Perhaps you felt it, that nagging sense that the answers you've been given don't quite add up, that a deeper truth is just beyond your grasp. The Urantia Book doesn't promise easy solutions, but it does offer a dramatically different lens through which to view reality, one that reveals a universe alive with inherent purpose, a cosmos humming with intelligent design, a God who isn't demanding blind loyalty but offering a partnership of co-creation, and a life that isn't a random accident but a thread woven into a tapestry so vast that you've only glimpsed a corner of it. From the moment you were born, everything around you, your culture, your education, your religious upbringing has taught you that this world is your one and only shot, that Earth is both your origin and your ultimate destiny, and that what matters most is what you accomplish here, what you earn, what you own, and how you are remembered after your physical death. But what if this isn't truly your home? What if this planet is just the first classroom in a much longer, more comprehensive curriculum? According to the Urantia Book, your life on Earth is only the beginning of a soul journey that extends across countless worlds, multiple dimensions, and entire tiers of existence. You are not a finished product. You are a soul in transit, and Earth was never intended to be the final destination. It's merely the launching point. The book describes a process of soul ascension that fundamentally rewrites everything you've been told about life after death. Instead of a simplistic binary of heaven or hell, or a final judgment at the pearly gates, it presents a structured system of progression. Following your physical death, if your soul chooses to continue its evolutionary journey, you awaken, not in a void, but on the mansion worlds, the next stage of existence where your spiritual education intensifies. These aren't ethereal, dreamlike realms of eternal rest. They are structured, tangible, and purposeful environments. Each successive level prepares you for the next, progressively refining your consciousness, expanding your understanding, and drawing you ever closer to divine awareness. This process is not reincarnation. You don't return to Earth repeatedly to pay off some vague karmic debt. Instead, you move forward. You evolve, not randomly, but through a meticulously designed curriculum crafted by cosmic architects. The ultimate aim is not to achieve perfection in a single lifetime, but to facilitate continuous growth across countless stages of existence. At every step along the way, you are supported, not judged, by spiritual beings whose sole purpose is to assist you in fully unfolding your potential. You are not navigating this journey alone. You are known, watched over with love, and guided with wisdom. The religious systems you were raised within rarely speak of this kind of ongoing evolution. They tend to compress everything into the confines of a single earthly life, offering salvation or eternal condemnation based on a single decision or belief. However, that idea is built on a foundation of fear, not truth. What kind of divine intelligence would meticulously create an entire universe solely to funnel souls into either eternal reward or unending punishment after a mere 80 years spent on one small planet? That's not justice. That's a system of control. The Urantia Book presents something far more dynamic and expansive. It suggests that your soul is a co-creator in its own destiny, and that each decision you make, each act of courage you perform, and each refusal to conform to the limitations of fear resonates far beyond the boundaries of this earthly existence. Your time on Earth matters deeply, but not in the way you've been conditioned to believe. It's not primarily about achieving worldly success or adhering to a rigid set of rules. It's about learning how to live in harmonious alignment with the divine essence within you. That's the true test. Not blind obedience, not flawless perfection, but consistent alignment with your highest self. This journey doesn't conclude until you reach the presence of the Universal Father, the ultimate source of all creation. That may take eons, it may stretch across galaxies, but that is the intended path. You aren't here to be perfect. You are here to begin the process of becoming. The inherent discomfort you feel within this world, that persistent ache for something more, that strange and inexplicable nostalgia for a place you've never consciously been, those aren't flaws in your programming. They are clues, subtle traces of memory, faint echoes of a journey that didn't begin here and won't conclude here either. You were never meant to remain stagnant. You were meant to awaken, to grow, and to continuously move forward. This world represents a single chapter in a much larger book. And once you grasp that fundamental truth, physical death ceases to be an ending. It becomes a seamless continuation, a transition into the next level of reality where the soul, now a little wiser and more experienced, continues its upward climb. You're not just a person. You're a pilgrim on a cosmic journey, and the road ahead isn't shrouded in darkness. It's purposefully designed to lead you home. There's a reason you are still watching this presentation. It's not simply idle curiosity. It's a form of recognition. Something deep within you knows that what you've been taught isn't the complete story, that the systems that have shaped your worldview, your education, your religious upbringing, your government, and the mass media were never designed to awaken you to your true potential. They were designed to mold you into a compliant member of society. But if you are still here, it's because something within you has already begun to break free, something deeper than your conscious mind, something ancient and powerful, a quiet part of your soul that refuses to be confined by rigid doctrines or reduced to simplistic labels. That something is the inherent spark of truth, and it's awakening within you right now. The Urantia Book doesn't offer you a new system to blindly obey. It provides you with the tools you need to dismantle the old systems from within your own consciousness. It challenges you to fundamentally rethink what it means to be spiritual, what it means to be truly alive, and what it means to be authentically human. It doesn't point you towards a charismatic preacher, a gilded temple, or an elaborate ritualistic ceremony. It points you towards yourself, your own conscience, your innate intuition, and your inner guidance. The moment you begin to trust that internal compass, you become a threat to the established systems, not because you are violent or disruptive, but because you no longer need them to define your reality. You don't need someone to tell you who God is. You don't need a formal education to validate your curiosity. You don't need permission to explore the depths of your own consciousness. That kind of profound freedom doesn't fit neatly into political parties or established religious creeds. It can't be easily monetized, and it certainly isn't profitable for those who seek to control and manipulate, but it's inherently yours. And when you choose to live from that place of inner knowing, you don't just escape the chains of control. You become a living mirror, reflecting back to others the vast potential that resides within them. The systems that dominate this world thrive on your agreement with limitation, your agreement with unworthiness, and your agreement with separation. Break that agreement, and the carefully constructed illusion begins to crumble. The power they wield over you isn't physical, it's psychological. They can only imprison a mind that doesn't realize it's already free. But you are beginning to realize it. You are starting to remember. Once you perceive the bars of the cage for what they truly are, mere stories, ingrained programming, you can step right through them. The Urantia Book doesn't demand blind faith. It calls for critical thought and rigorous self-reflection. It invites you to test its ideas, to wrestle with its concepts, and to thoroughly investigate its claims. It doesn't demand unwavering belief. It dares you to examine, and that's precisely what makes it so dangerous to the status quo. It trusts you with the truth, and it trusts that you are ready to think for yourself. You don't need to agree with everything contained within its pages, but you owe it to yourself to explore its depths, because once you do, you'll never perceive reality in the same way again. You'll come to realize that your potential has been vastly underestimated by every system you've ever known, that your soul was meant to expand and evolve, not to simply comply and conform, and that your life isn't a random fluke of chance. It's a deliberately woven thread in a cosmic tapestry of immense intelligence and sacred purpose. You're not here by accident, and you aren't watching this because you are bored or seeking a distraction. You're here because something deep within you is ready to step outside the established script, ready to stop passively nodding in agreement and start asking profound questions. You're living proof that the system cannot contain you, and the more you embody that fundamental truth, the more others will recognize it within themselves. That's how real and lasting change unfolds, not through acts of violence or angry protest, but through the quiet and steady awakening of individual consciousness. The Urantia Book doesn't arrive adorned with grand prophecies or cloaked in thunderous pronouncements. It doesn't shout for your attention. It doesn't demand your allegiance. It simply waits patiently. It's quiet, almost too quiet for a world addicted to noise, and perhaps that's precisely why most people never find it. It doesn't come with a recognizable brand, a tightly organized movement, or a charismatic leader figure. It just exists, openly available, daring you to pick it up and see what it does to your mind. Once you do, something extraordinary happens. You don't just passively read the book begins to actively read you. It's not just the content that unsettles you. It's the profound feeling that it somehow knows you are searching for something more, something deeper than what you've been offered. It doesn't try to scare you into faith or lure you with empty promises of reward. It simply presents a version of reality that is so staggeringly vast, so meticulously ordered, and so profoundly human that you find yourself wondering how you ever settled for anything less. It rewires your perception of life, death, purpose, identity, and the very nature of time. It doesn't provide you with easy answers. It provides you with the profound questions you were never permitted to ask. What if the universe isn't a chaotic battlefield of competing souls, but rather a structured school for the evolution of consciousness? What if you aren't a flawed and fallen creature begging for redemption, but an unfinished soul invited to participate in its own ongoing growth and transformation? What if Jesus wasn't sent to die as a sacrificial offering, but to live as a shining example, showing you the way back home, not as a savior positioned high above you, but as a brother walking beside you? These aren't just minor theological tweaks. They are tectonic shifts in your perception, and once they occur within you, nothing outside of you looks quite the same. You begin to see. So, in essence, the Urantia Book offers a vision of reality that's far more expansive and interconnected than we're typically led to believe. It suggests we're not just accidental specks in a meaningless void, but integral parts of a living, intelligent cosmos, each on a unique journey of spiritual evolution. It paints a picture of a loving God, not one of judgment and fear, and a Jesus who came to show us the way to our own divine potential. It's a message of hope, empowerment, and the profound realization that you are so much more than you've been told. If any of this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. What questions does this raise for you? What aspects feel particularly intriguing? Let's start a conversation. And if you found this exploration thought-provoking, please subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on future discussions about these fascinating and paradigm-shifting ideas. Let's continue to explore the depths of reality together.